welcome to part 3 with Perry Husband and I. We're going to be doing many parts, but there's many of more parts. But we're continuing on the idea. First, let me welcome you to the show, Perry, before I go into the intro.
Hey, it's always a pleasure to be here.
And so we're in part 3 of at the beginning of the instructor saying in a mocking tone, saying to the opposing instructor or hitter, hey, if your instructor is teaching you exit velocity mechanics, ask him why, or ask her why, in a mocking tone. This isn't a friendly tone. This isn't ask them why they're teaching that. It's not what it is. So we're continuing on part 3. Today, we're going to be doing pretty much a lot of screen share. So for those that are listening on podcasts, we're going to do our best to try and explain what's going on the screen share. So for those on podcasts aren't watching this on YouTube or whatnot, but if you are watching this on podcast, I should have a link to the video, the YouTube video in the show notes or whatnot. So if you wanted to see actually what Perry's doing, what I'm doing, then you can go down and click that video. But this is part 3. We're going to be really going more into that. Talking about just giving examples. Perry's going to give a bunch of examples, which are interesting. We were just talking about Mike Trout, and Perry, you want to pick up there on exit velocities up and in versus down and away?
Yeah. I did a study, like a 5-year study of him. And when you look at Mike Trout, he has that philosophy that most guys have, which is he's going to get extended on pitches away and down. And when the pitch is on its way in, I would say the go-to default mode in Major League Baseball is to pull the hands in and try to get the barrel closer, to you, so that you can buy yourself some time on the fastball.
And bending that front elbow significantly, right. Maybe like even in a 90-degree bend.
Yeah, to try to buy time by creating space between you and the baseball. Mm-hmm. Instead of getting out there and getting it fully extended 2 feet out in front of home plate, of at least 18 inches in front of home plate, the primary default mode is to try to get extended on the outside fastball, but anything that's on the inside, just pull the hands in, pull the barrel in, and try to buy yourself some time, right? Mm-hmm. Which is great, but the league average is 84 miles an hour in the up and in box of the strike zone on fastball exit velocity. Mm-hmm. On middle up and middle in, it's about 87. On the diagonal, it's about 93, which is league average pitch speed. Mm-hmm. And then middle away and down and middle, it's 96. And then it's like 91 down and away, extreme in the down and away box. So in Mike Trout's case, he is 73 miles an hour up and in. He doesn't lose a little bit. He loses 30 miles an hour over that period. And then in the middle up and middle in box combined, so that's a third of the strike zone on fastballs only, his exit velocity was just over 80 miles an hour. So think about that for a second. It's 102 average down and away and down and middle.
For Mike Trout.
And middle away, yeah. Mm-hmm. In that third of the strike zone, he absolutely destroys baseballs that are fastballs.
When he gets fully extended with that front arm, which he's getting fully extended with the front arm versus the chicken wing bend 90 degrees up and in.
Right. Now, I'm not saying you can't pull your hands in and hit a homer, because it happens every once in a while. Guys are okay at doing it. And again, when you're big enough to get away with being at 70% of your max and hit a homer.
Aaron Judge.
Okay. Yeah. But let's just say, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? What are guys like you and I doing talking about mechanics? And from my perspective, it's about trying to help kids that go up to the plate and try to perform what these big league guys are doing. They're going to hit the ball 38 miles an hour, exit velocity. They're going to pop up balls left and right. They're going to strike out. They're going to swing and miss. They're going to foul tip it. It just is a very poor method to try to perfect. So what I think you and I are talking about is when you're talking about teaching kids, you have to look at the pure version of things and say, if you go after this, like if you copy Ken Griffey Jr. swing, he's producing on a lot of levels, right? He's doing a lot of things, high production of squaring balls up, You know what I mean? And so that's the kind of model that I want to use, where an Altuve who's pound for pound hitting the ball ridiculously hard. So if I'm going to look at Aaron Judge versus Altuve and say, okay, I got an 8-year-old, which swing am I going to teach my 8-year-old? Come on, there's not even a comparison pound for pound. I'm going to take a swing that's more efficient. So I think that's a big point. I think you and I are trying to get the point across that there is a better set of mechanics to produce A, more solid contact, B, harder contact, because that's king of all things when it comes to hitting, is exit velocity. It is the number one number, and I don't care what anybody says, it's not even close. When that batting average goes up 5 miles an hour, it is a huge increase in batting average, like 150 points. You go from 90 to 95 in exit velocity, and I think it's 150 or 170 points jump. And the slugging percentage goes right with it, and the home runs goes right with it. The second your exit velocity goes up, everything changes. So if Judge, who averages around 78% of his max, if he were to increase that number to where he hits more balls in play at a slightly higher exit velocity, guess what would happen? He would hit 80 homers or 90 homers or 100 homers. So he's taking a very inefficient model and applying it and having success. But again, this is another major point. How do you define success? You know, is it the biggest kid in Little League having the ugliest swing you've ever seen, but he hits a homer because how can he not? Because he's stronger than everybody by 20%. You know what I mean? So I think that point is super important to make, is we're talking in terms of what is the best mechanic, what is the most efficient mechanic, what produces the most power, and is it repeatable and provable? And the answer to all those questions or that the last one is yes, it is very provable, because all you got to do is test it.
Right. And I think that's the problem that people are having right now. And they will take somebody who's teaching and they're working with so-and-so, and so-and-so's a big name. And so that is in itself a qualifier or credibility indicator. But you have to use a little bit more discernment, which I think we've learned the value of discernment and critical thinking over the last few years. Like you said, you got a guy who's like Judge, 6'8", 6'9", versus Altuve, who's like 5'6". So if you look at overall,
according to him, 5'5".
5'5", yeah.
I'm 5'5", 155.
He does the opposite. Normal guys, they lie and say they're taller and they weigh more, but he's going the other way, so that, you know, he kind of lives in that sphere of I'm the small guy, you know, look what I'm doing type of thing. And cheating aside, right? Knowing what signs are coming and stuff. I mean, we have to look at this. We have to kind of take a lot of that out, you know.
I did a study on that, by the way.
Did you?
Yeah, I was paying super close attention to that series because I was helping Brent Strom, who was their pitching coach. And number one, it was only at home. Number two, everybody else was doing it too. Number three,
not just the Astros, by the way, those listening, just the Astros, but everybody else in the league.
Yeah. Everyone who had that capability was using it. Trust me.
Yep.
And so it's like what normally happens when you do a study of hard hit balls is around 10% of hard hit balls, and it's almost always 10 down to 8, sometimes up to 11, very rarely, but most of the time it's 10% or 9% of the hard hit balls happen on the hardest pitches, the hardest combinations, which is fastball up and in, slider out of a tunnel, change up out of a tunnel. When they have 6 miles an hour between them and they're coming out of a tunnel, that's when they're EV efficient, right? And normally the hard hit ball rate on those, it happens about 10% of the time. With the Astros, it happened about 13% of the time. So what my take on that is that they just did everything normal, except there was some help, there was some enhancement of about 3 or 4%. So that's the number that I would apply to it as to how it helped them. Now, granted, when they know a slider's coming, it's way better than knowing a fastball's coming, because fastball just is can be, as we know, 95 can be 90, or it can be 100, depending on where it's at.
Yep.
So they were still late on 100. They rarely turned on really hard to hit fastballs. So anyway, whatever that's worth.
But look at that though. So like, if you take this inferior swing model where they're not worried about ball exits because it actually exploits the inferiorness of the model itself, right? And the swing is up. It is up, up, up. Like I think in part 2, you're talking about, I love the metaphor I've been using with my hitters, but you got a speedboat coming across the water and you're shooting it. It's like you're shooting a missile from the bottom, a torpedo, right? And so you got, this is the ball, this is the barrel, and you got the ball coming up here at 2 to 3 degrees down up in the zone, and you got a torpedo barrel that's coming up here, and it has to be perfectly timed in order to get it. So when you got an upswing model, I don't care if you know a fastball is coming. If it's up in the zone, middle up of the zone, you're going to have a hard time getting on top of that anyway, even though you know it's coming.
Yeah. And if you're not training to get above the ball with that rise effect, and you're not training to add the speed, you're not hitting that up and in fastball anyway. And they didn't.
Yeah. They
didn't execute on up and in fastballs like normal, right? Like, so if you're actually going to look at it scientifically, I don't buy into the whole concept of cheating in the first place, because in fact, I got a call and said, "What would you do?" And I said, "Why do you need to cheat? There is absolutely no reason to cheat, because they're telling you what they're going to throw anyway. If you look at a pitcher through an EV lens, they're going to make multiple mistakes with crossover speeds, bad visuals. So if you just do your homework and you look at every pitcher through an EV lens, it is very easy to come up with sometimes 2 or 3 different game plans where you're going to get a bunch of pitches to hit that you can be 100% certain that they're going to happen."
That's a good point. That's a good point.
For example, you know what? I think we called it the Dubront, because Felix Dubront, who was a great pitcher, but he would throw 96 and he would throw it up and in a 4-seamer, but he would also throw a sinker off of that. And that sinker was just a couple miles an hour slower, right? So to a right-handed batter, 96 up and in is 101, 102. And that sinker at 93 is really 88 middle away, or 89. And so he's got 89 and 102, 101. And so it's a brilliant combination. But to a lefty hitter, that fastball up and away is 96, and that sinker is 96 EV miles an hour. So he's actually, thank you, because you're throwing me 2 pitches out of the same tunnel, and they're both running into my barrel if I sit on the right pitch.
Right.
If I'm sitting up and away fastball, I get a 2-for-1 that day, because I don't care which one of those you throw, because the sinker is going to run in towards me, but you slow it down enough to where it matches my bat path. I don't even need to recognize it. So that's happening all the time. I'm watching it right now with the Orioles. They've got the Astros have a young kid that throws 97 up and away to lefties, 92 cutter in. Guess what? Thank you. That's like a happiest day ever, is when they give you 2 pitches for 1. But there's a bunch of other things that happen. So that's another major point that we need to make, which is, mechanics aside, the fact that we're still arguing about mechanics is utterly ridiculous. Because number one, you can test every element under multiple circumstances. So while your philosophy of sitting on your back leg and waiting for the ball to show up, while that helps you on off-speed pitches, it crushes you on fastball up and in. I did a mock-up of, like, if I were a pitcher facing Aaron Judge and I wanted to be EV efficient and I was right-handed. So I took the average pitcher in Major League Baseball, 93 plus fastball. Okay. So that's league average is 93.
Yep.
But guys are throwing 97, 98 all the time. So you just take 93 plus, and you take fastballs up and in, sliders away, curveballs down and away, changeups in. I think the numbers were, he never hit over 200 against any of those pitches. And he had only 1 or 2 homers this year on that combination of pitches. So in other words, How does Aaron Judge do against the hardest pitching? Answer, not very well. So because that philosophy of staying on your back leg, it has a big, big, big hole in it. And if you know what you're doing on the mound, you exploit that. So what do big league pitchers do? Let's just throw fastballs down and away where he's gearing towards. We're trying to minimize the damage. How's that working out?
It's like a conspiracy, right? It's like the pitcher trying to help him out.
I don't understand it. I honestly think that sometimes that Major League Baseball said, hey man, we can't let this get out of whack. So you pitchers need to like curtail it a little bit and bend over backwards to help our hitters hit the ball hard, because that's what brings people into the ballpark.
Right. Butts and seats.
Yeah. It's like it's a weird dynamic. It's hard for me to imagine. I hate watching baseball on a regular basis. It just like as a fan, it's very hard to watch. It's hard to watch college baseball. It's hard to watch professional baseball because the sequencing is like, it's like if you were a master chess player, that sounds arrogant saying that, but if you're a master chess player and you're watching a bunch of young kids playing chess that have no idea what they're doing, it would be kind of hard for you to watch, right? Because you'd see
slap my head. Yeah, slap my head. Yeah.
Don't do that. Oh, no, not there.
Landmine.
I beat you in 2 moves if you do that.
We got to do, Perry. We got to figure this out. The gamers do this all the time. My kids watch some of these YouTubers, and they're playing a game. Like the main screen is playing a game, and then it's you and me would be up. I would love Discord, to be able to watch a game with you. Like watch a game. Yeah, Discord, where I could watch a game with you. And we could have our here, and we could just talk right through the game, and you could.
I don't know if they let us do that in real time. We'd have to do it on a delay, because I don't think you can do a stream.
No, we don't have to do it on real time. No, we just record it and do it that. I think we're able to do that.
Yeah, like if you recorded a game and then just played it right after the game's over. You just can't do it while the game's playing.
No, not live. But we could. I think that would be fun we don't have to do the whole game, because that'd be a long video. But
yeah, Discord's very cool because you can have a bunch of people on it too, and you can have a live stream. But you could have 2 or 3 of us on at once, and that would be a great way to debate. I would love to get the top pitching gurus out there on a Discord. And we just neither one of us have seen the game. We verify that somehow. And then I say what's going to happen. They say what's going to happen. And then you run it. So I would say, if this is fastball in, middle in to up and in, he fouls it off, swings and misses, or pops it up. And they would say, if it's this, it's this. If it's a slider, this happens. If it's a changeup, this happens. And so pretty soon, what would end up happening is you would be very astonished how often it's like, oh, foul tip's coming. Oh, look at that, foul tip. Because hitters act so predictably. The human nature is so strong in them that whatever they see, they react to. Every pitch changes their attention a little bit. It sways it a little faster or slower, but it's super predictable to the point of you can predict that's a rollover ground ball waiting to happen if he executes. If he throws this pitch in this area at this speed, this will almost 100% be a rollover ground ball if he hits it. And there it goes. Like the first time when I first introduced effective velocity to Tom House, this was like 2001 or 2, I can't remember. It was when Barry Bonds was still playing, because the Giants were at San Diego. So I went down, and my brother, I think he owned the building that leased space to Tom. So they had become friends. And so he set up the meeting, actually. I'd met Tom a couple of times, but I didn't set up the meeting. And so he takes me to a game that night, Padres game. And he's like, explain to me what this is. So Jake Peavy's on the mound, right? And they show this thing out in the outfield that tells you what the pitch is and what the speed is. I'm like, oh, okay, perfect. So I said, okay, if this first pitch, when we started first pitch of the game, if this first pitch is PV's normal 93, 94, 95, and it's middle in to up and in, he'll foul it straight back if he swings the bat, or he'll swing and miss. So first pitch, fouled straight back. And he looks at me like, okay, keep going. So if this next pitch is a little higher, he swings and misses. Next pitch, up and in, swing and miss. Like, then he starts looking at me. We go 11 pitches deep, and I haven't missed one yet. And it doesn't always work like that, because I don't know if he's going to swing. I don't know what's
right.
I don't know. I know he's going to be late. I know he's going to be late. Yeah. But I don't know how late he's going to be precisely. Because when I say he's going to swing and miss, that means I know he's going to be 5 or 6 or 7 miles an hour late. So when that happens, it's like, dang. And so, you know, when I predicted like the third rollover ground ball, if he throws a slider right here and he hits it, it'll be a ground ball to shorter third. And my brother's looking at me like, are you a witch? How in the world can you possibly know that? And I'm like, it's just a simple, here's how the hitter acts. Here's what speed does to them. Here's what location does to them. Like if I'm a hitter and I get buzzed twice in here, what does that do to me? I'm not going to just go right back to leaning out over the plate, right? It's going to affect me physically and psychologically, and the speed that I expect is going to change a little bit. So every single pitch thrown alters the landscape. It changes stuff. So you throw 3 curveballs in the dirt, and I keep getting more and more and more bent over. Guess what? I'm moving my attention. My attention is morphing all the time. But when you understand it, you know how it's going to morph, and you can literally predict. I'm going to say 70% of all contact, and sometimes 90. It just depends on the day. And if I get a chance to scout the pitcher and the hitters ahead of time, then sometimes it gets really scary how often it's right. But there's only one part of it which is that's very subjective, and that is judging what happened on that last pitch. And so when you look at it from a scientific standpoint, it's very subjective, that part of it.
Right.
But what you're basing it on is millions of pitches, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of observations of at-bats that happened exactly the same way. You look at the data, and you know what data happens when a hitter's late. Exit velocity goes down, foul balls go up. There's just a ton of things that happen as a result of being late. Like the fastball study of how does exit velocity happen in the strike zone. And it's exactly the same, not a little, it's exactly the same every year. It might ebb and flow by a mile an hour, but the diagonal that includes middle, up and away, and down and in, they have, if league average that year is 93 miles an hour, then the average exit velocity is going to be right around 93 miles an hour. Up and away, middle, down and in, all the same. Which is weird all by itself, right? Because it's not supposed to be, but it is every single year, within a mile an hour, up and away, middle, down and in, no different. So all of analytics is positive that up and away is the best place to elevate fastballs, yet it's the highest exit velocity of all the elevated locations.
Right. Let's get into some demos, since we promised again on this one. I didn't want to go too far, because we could keep talking like this, and our podcast listeners would love this conversation. So let's shift gears a little bit, and let's start sharing some screens.
All right, I'm going to be very transparent and say this may be the least I've been, because I got lost in a couple things this morning and didn't get a chance to put together a bunch of stuff. But it might actually even make it better, because I'm just going to jump around and randomly grab hitter, all over the place, and we'll just kind of look at mechanics. So look at the size of this. Like, is your 8-year-old have guns like that? And the answer to that is no, probably not, right?
You can see mine. Oh, this was when he was like 6 or 7 back here behind me.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Yeah. So the elements of this that I think are important is you got to know what your barometer is. If I'm going to look at this player,
and you know who the hitter is?
I think it's Diaz.
Okay, for the Rays. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he hits this ball opposite field. It's a homer. Here it is. This is a homer on an up and away fastball, oddly enough. See, right on that diagonal, he could have thrown that middle, same effect. Mm-hmm. Down and in, same reaction time. Now, he might not hit it the same. He's not going to hit it opposite field, probably, down and in. But the reaction time of up and away is the same as if when I lower the pitch to middle. So when he hits this, the question is this 100%? And you watch where it goes and you go, no, that's the shortest right center in baseball, I think. And it went like 4 rows deep. So is that as far as this guy can hit it? And the answer is no. And everybody out there is screaming, well, yeah, but it doesn't matter. It went over the fence.
And Perry, how many major league home runs have you hit?
Well, it depends on how we count that, because a lot, actually.
Yeah, right.
If you count, making them happen or helping them happen, not making them happen. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I don't mind having that conversation either, the player thing, because I didn't hit all that great in the minor leagues. It took me a while, because back then you didn't use wood bats when you were an amateur. And we didn't even have amateur baseball when I was, once you get past a certain age, like past Pony League, we didn't have any of those other leagues. We didn't have American Legion. So I played men's fast pitch softball when I was 16. And I'm facing guys that are throwing 82 miles an hour from 45 feet.
So about 105.
Yeah, more. We had a team that won the world championship out of Palmdale. But so when I got to the wood bat, it was a very difficult thing. But I mean, I was the MVP of the College World Series. I had a 32 game hitting streak in junior college. I think it still stands. Somebody told me the other day that they think it still stands. And so it wasn't like I couldn't hit. I hit at a pretty high level. But that's not really the point. The point is what is the best method? What's the best mechanic? And if you're going to look at that swing and say, this is the way to go, right? Because that's a homer. Let's look at this swing and let's break it down and let's copy this swing. And I'm going to say, well, let's measure it and see if it's 100%. So the first thing I would say is he's lost this angle already. So
the front arm and the bat angle. Yeah.
If that lead arm stays locked, not only is it a longer lever, but it also creates a better angle, and more energy gets stored in that one fulcrum.
So the actual angle looks more like maybe 115 degrees with the bat angle and the front arm. If you drew it, is it about that? You're talking about less than
and this
125 degrees.
Yeah, it's not accurate from this angle. We'd have to be able to get a.
But you're talking about if he gets that front arm locked at approach, and the barrel kind of sub 90 degrees angle coming in, so front arm and barrel angle shape, if that angle is held better and tighter.
Yeah. Go ahead. Well, number one, the barrel stays behind the ball, inside the ball, like everybody wants, which, is a stupid thing to start with. But it's if you want the barrel inside the ball, is his hands inside the ball? Yes. Is his barrel inside the ball? No. He's casted to some degree. He's already casted and lost some of that hammer action. So he's not at 100%. And I don't mean to pick on this player or this hit, because this is what I stand for. Is I know you're not going to be 100% on time. I know you're going to be early and late. But when you have a mechanic like this with the barrel path, guess what? I don't care if I'm on time. This is him being late, because that is where he gets extended. And that is where he's 100% on time in his mind, is closer to there.
And bring it back. So he's making contact just behind his belt buckle.
Yeah, I would say that he is 1.5 to 2 miles an hour late
Mm-hmm.
on 95, because that was 95 up and away, and that's what it is.
And is that you drew that line? Was that about 1.5 feet behind where he should be making contact? 100 it?
Right there, he hits it right there. I would say maybe as much as 18 inches.
Yeah, 1.5 feet.
And so 18 inches at 95 miles an hour is about 2.5 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. That's about how late he is. But when your swing plane is awesome, who cares? But if Aaron Judge or anyone who has that philosophy of going up very severely, they don't make contact there. They foul that ball off. They foul tip it, they swing and miss, they pop it up because they're under it trying to come at it, not from this angle, but they're coming at it from an angle that's way more upward.
18, the torpedo.
19, yeah.
The torpedo coming up to hit the speedboat on top of the water.
Right. And so you end up getting, like, if I create a bat and a ball here, if these are way out of whack, but you'll get the idea. If I'm trying to hit this exactly in the middle, if I'm coming at it from this angle, right, I'm going to be, when I'm early, I'm going to top it because I'm going past it. And when I'm late, right, I get right to there, and then this thing goes right off the top of my bat. So whenever I take that weird angle, your margin for error is ridiculously small. Like if you look back at Aaron Judge's homer that he tied the 62 or 61, or broke the record, actually. I think it was the 5th or 6th fastball in the same at bat. Foul ball, foul ball, foul ball. And then here's the homer, right? Because it takes a lot to time up and to be perfectly on time when you take that approach.
And would you say in part 2 on that too is that with that torpedo coming from under to hit the speedboat across the water up top, 1 in 25 or 1 in 50 is what you're looking at it being 100% on time?
Yeah, and you would have to really test that to be certain. But here's the logic. Hitters in the big leagues that hit 25 homers, that's 1 in 25 at bats, where they're close to being at maximum, right? Not that homers are necessarily maximum, like this one's nowhere near his max,
right?
But it's a happy accident. But my point is that when you swing up and you do enough data and you look at what happens when, like, for example, what's his name? Voit.
Stephen Voit.
I don't think it's Stephen, is it?
Who played with the A's, lefty?
No. The righty hitter. Big. He led all of Major League Baseball in homers in the shortened season. He was with Padres. He was with the Yankees. Anyway.
Okay.
Carlos did a study, so I did all the research for him on MLB Network. And I looked at all the fastballs middle up in the strike zone that he's faced in his 3 years. And of all the ones that he swung at, he foul tipped, swung on and missed, or popped up 84% of them. Almost 9 out of 10 fastballs right down central.
Right.
Bell tie. He foul tipped, swung on and missed, or popped up 84%.
And that's what I saw with Bellinger for like 4 years with the Dodgers.
Yeah. And it's what you see with everybody that does that, is that they foul off. You almost, if you're a pitcher and you know what you're doing, that's almost a free strike or a 1 pitch out, one of the two. And I know that sounds ridiculous to say that at this highest level, but it's true. So the way I look at this is I realize that he's late by 1.5 feet. So he's a couple miles an hour late. He's also not mechanically perfect. So there's going to be a little bit of absorption at the moment of impact. So that's how I look at this. You know, like if I'm looking at again, I'm just going to start grabbing stuff because most of these have a side view to go with it.
Well, and here's the thing that Perry's talking about, right? So as Perry's queuing this up, it's the fact of, okay, which hitting mechanic philosophy is better, right? And it all depends on what is your definition of successful hitting mechanic philosophy. Is it to have an adjustable swing, which is probably the majority of people out there do? Yep. So it's like we was talking about where Mike Trout will extend middle away and middle down with his front arm, and he'll have a 101, middle away average ball exit speed. And then if it's middle in or middle up, he'll suck the hands in and have that 90-degree chicken wing. But at the consequence of his average exit speed going down to 73 miles an hour. So do we have to lose that much ball exit speed from middle away to up and in? Well, with some philosophies, some philosophers, hitting philosophers, are okay with that. And it's a reason why
it's a good trade-off for them.
Yeah. For Perry and I, it's the reason why they don't want metrics. They don't want ball exit speed to enter into the equation when they debate this, because this really exposes their philosophy and how inferior it actually is to us. So both Perry and I I'm on board with Perry's, and we're very much in sync on that. We may differ on how we teach it and things like that, but we want 100%. When we say 100, actually, and Perry added the extra 100, which I also agree with. I've been teaching that as well. 100% on time, 100% swing effective or efficient, and then 100% like sweet spot percentage, like we're hitting it right on the sweet spot. That's what we're talking about. That's just to kind of let you folks know what our grading criteria of a really good swing is it's 100% on time, 100% swing effective or efficient, and 100% swing like sweet spot. That's what we're 100 is our goal. Go for it.
And it almost never happens.
Right.
And that's not the point, after all, is to make it happen. Because actually when it happens, like Carlos Pena, the one time he did it, I do have that one. I think I can find that fairly easily. The one time he did it was like, God, I hate it because it's a single. It's a 120 mile an hour single that he just absolutely careers. I think I have that one. Let me find that. It's such a good example of what I'm talking about, because I don't actually even want it to happen. And I'm going to show you another one that he did that I've never seen before or since. And I played for a long time, and you'll have to tell me whether you have or not.
Mm-hmm.
But this one first. And this one is the ball's coming in at about 6 degrees down, and it leaves on exactly the same line.
Mm-hmm.
6 degrees.
Yep.
I don't even want that, right? I want Carlos Pena to get underneath that slightly. But when he does square that up, when that's the goal, I know that, like right now, no one in America could predict what's going to happen with what kind of contact is going to happen right here, including Carlos. He doesn't have any idea that he's going to be 100% on time to this, or really close.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, he's probably just a hair early, because it kind of leaves his bat, as you can see. The way you judge that is wherever the bat leaves right after it's hit. Like if it's going upward, then he probably topped it just ever so much, right? But this is the one that you don't even actually want. But I'll bet you that ball, he topped out at 119. But they weren't publishing it. You had to kind of know someone to get.
When that ball, what Perry's saying, that ball was coming in probably around just above his knee or so. And just imagine, this is what I use with my hitters, is imagine the pitcher's throwing a ball through a tube, and the tube is set by the pitch height.
Yeah.
So imagine this ball coming in just above his knee, and he's smashing it right back through the tube, right back through the tube. So the same height the pitch is coming in, it's taking off his bat the same height. Yeah.
And so if that's perfect, if that's your idea of perfect, now you're going to miss below and above center, right? All the time. But you're going to hit 4 missiles underneath that are probably, in Carlos Pena's case, almost all homers. And then you're going to hit 4 that you barely miss the line drive, but they turn into ground balls. And those are those 100 mile an hour ground balls that have a 440 batting average.
Right.
So I get the best of all worlds when I'm in that boat, because you think you're going to hit the ball solid all the time. It's not going to happen. You're going to miss it 9 out of 10 times. The question is, how bad are you missing it? And the answer is, really bad if your swing plane looks like this. You are not going to square balls up all that often. The fact that he hit 300 is amazing, but is it him doing it because he only hit 150, I think, against my imaginary real major league data, but imaginary fastball in, slider away, curveball down, changeup in. He didn't hit above 180 against any of those pitches when thrown at the right speed. So I manipulated StatCast in order to throw a changeup that was at the right speed to miss his bat, which is like 84 or less, and 93 or more inside fastball, 87 to 85 slider away, and then a curveball that's slower than 82. And with that combination, he was awful and will be awful if people just threw that combination of pitches. Why they don't is beyond me. So watch this. This is a lefty. He hits this ball to left center.
Carlos Pena again.
And look at that thing hook. That thing hooks 40 feet at least.
Was that Granderson out there?
And that's Curtis Granderson. That's not a nobody.
It looked like he took a horrible route to this one. He opens up to his right side, Granderson in center.
So what causes the ball to hook, if you understand golf, is, you know, the direction the ball starts is always the direction you swung the club, right? So if I push a ball off to the right, it's because I did something in my swing to cause me to push the ball to the right. If I have my club face open at the moment of impact, it's going to put spin on it that's going to make it slice. If I close my head, club head, it's going to hook, right? Even though it starts right, but it hooks because I swung the club right, but I had a closed club face at the moment of impact. So it puts that spin on it. So what he just did was he hooked the ball, which means he was 101% on time.
And this ball's, by the way, so Pena's a lefty, and this ball is on the outer third part, or probably, outer third part of the plate, if not maybe a ball off the plate.
Right.
And he hooks this ball slightly to the right side, just to the right side of center field.
Well, it starts off to left center, and then works its all the way back to center.
Yeah, and turns Granderson around.
So when you hit a ball to left, it almost always fades right the other way. It's hard to keep it fair if you hit it down the line like that because your barrel's open and it's causing that kind of spin. Right. This is another study I don't think anyone's ever done right, is what happens to the ball off the bat. But the reason I bring this up in a timing perspective is because he was so close to 100% on time, but he was early enough to get the barrel closed enough to create that kind of spin. So he was 101% on time. He was early by 1 or 2%, almost perfect, but just a hair early. So when you go to that extreme on your timing, now I'm going to get better and better and better and better at my personal timing if I'm measuring everyone off of perfect. If I'm just randomly saying, oh, that's all right, that's all right, that's all right, it sounded good, that ball was crushed, all of that stuff is great.
Hey, it went over the fence. It went over the fence.
It doesn't have to go 100 feet over the fence. It just has to get over the fence.
Wall scraper.
And yes, you're right. But if you are at 85%, you have to be almost flawless to hit that ball out of the yard. Whereas Carlos at 120, if he misses it by 20%, he's at 80% of his max. He hits the ball 30 feet over the fence still probably.
Yep.
And that's what happens. That's the goal. The goal is to get to a point where I know my worst, ugliest ball still has a great chance to be a homer. That's why I hit a homer every 8.5 at bats for that period that
you build yourself a cushion. It's not just let's just get it over the fence. Let's just get it over. It's like going beyond the fence. I'd heard Bryce Harper at one point was talking about, he doesn't just try and hit it over. He tries to hit it out of the stadium. It's
I want the hardest ball you've ever hit in your life every time you come to the plate.
Yeah.
Not like a swing out of your butt and have to call timeout and put your shoes back on kind of swing. I'm talking about the definition I use is I want 100% effort, or like 100% of what you can control 100%. So if you can swing on a scale of 1 to 10 at a 9.9, that's what I want. If you have to slow down to an 8 to get control, then that's your max. But if you're at a 9.9, like a Tiger Woods is going to be at about 9.9 effort level with every swing that he takes. And Al Geiberger had a great comment, the golfer, the first guy to break 60. He said, the only way you know that you're consistently having the same swing is if you're all out. Because if I'm halfway, how do I know what halfway is? How do I know what 80% is? But I know what all out is every single time, right? I know what my 100% level is. And so that's what I want to produce. And then everybody's like, well, how do you hit curveball?
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole next level of stuff.
Right.
Is first you develop a 100, 100, 100 swing. And then you learn how to apply it. You learn how to load. And this is where, I shied away from talking about this for a long time. But this is one of those factors that that softball players, especially Oklahoma, of what they're doing is they're trying to be 100, 100 all the time. And their goal, if you see this little diagram to the right, they're trying to be at about 10%. Okay.
10 degree launch angle.
10 degrees. Sorry.
Yeah.
10 degrees.
Yeah.
And that's basically the goal. But realistically, what we're trying to do is be 100% on time. And we're trying to practice a swing plane that's going to put you at 10 degrees. Why? Because you're going to miss 4 of them that are going to go up and 4 of them that are going to go down, and the 2 of them along that line at most, right? And so the more in line with a pitch I am, the higher this number is. If I'm going at a glancing blow like this, that's why I say it's more than like 1 in 25, because you have to be perfect. And I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm trying to be perfect, but I know that I can't be. So therefore I'm going to create a line that's in line in a head-on collision with the ball and just let the round ball, round bat thing do its thing. And this just happens to be, if you watch this pitch coming in, it's at about 0 degrees. And just for the record, this pitch is 73 miles an hour. And look where she's at. Locked out.
She got about a
ball is right 80 on top of her.
About 80 degree angle between her front arm and her barrel. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like if I get rid of these, I'll just do that line. Right around 80.
81.
Just, yeah, a little bit right around there anyway. I mean, it's always hard to get that.
Right.
But where is she? Is she going down below it? She's getting in line with it and staying in line with it forever. So if she was late on this, what would happen? She would still crush that. It wouldn't matter, right? It would be a hard ground ball most likely, but she's going to still crush that. But as it turns out, she hit this one, I think, over the camera well in left center.
Well, it's leaving 30 degree angle. It's showing 30 degree angle. So,
but this 73 mile an hour pitch at 43 feet, where she's really letting go of it probably at 38 feet, something like that. This is equivalent to about 107, 108 reaction time. So it's not like you can't compare this to major leagues. You can. Yeah. In fact, I guarantee you there's not very many major league hitters that are going to hit over $150 against the most elite level softball pitchers for the first month that they play. Right. Because it's such a weird thing coming from that low angle. And most of them are swinging up. They have no shot at hitting more than $100 or $150. It's just not going to happen. Right. I mean, not that they can't hit them. Of course they can. I mean, I played in that level for a long time and have a lot of friends that play pro ball that became really great fast pitch softball hitters. But the point is that you have to train yourself, retrain yourself to understand what that plane is all about.
Right. Well, Perry, let's because I got a hard stop. I got to pick up the kiddos. Let's do the part 4. We'll continue on this and we'll bring up some more examples. I think especially that Mike Trout example and showing people exactly taking that up and in fastball versus that down and away and how that changes, how that changes his barrel path. And then also maybe going over, we did it in, I think, part 1, we talked about that Carlos case study they did on MLB Network or whatever, where he talked about, he took Judge and Ohtani, hard hit rate versus sweet spot percentage, and a rise or a Rees, however you say his name, his hard hit rate versus his sweet spot percentage. And we can maybe show that, demonstrate that. So anyway, with that, where can people find you for more information, Perry? Because I think this is it, and this is what people really have to consider is, what are we measuring success wise of a hitting philosophy? So if it's something that where we got the speedboat on top of the water and we got the torpedo coming from underneath, the torpedo being the barrel path and the motorboat or the speedboat being the pitch, right? Is it that, or is it shooting a torpedo right in front?
I was going to say, we forgot to finish that analogy, because when that speedboat's coming racing towards the torpedo on the same plane, guess what? You're not going to miss very often.
So where can people find you, Perry?
At effectivevelocity.com is the website, and I'm going to start doing a lot more stuff on Twitter at EV Perry Husband.
Yep. And you have products, and you have your books and all that stuff at Effective Velocity. If you click on, I think it's like products or something in the navigation, right?
Yeah, there's some memberships in there, and some individual courses.
And he's got a new book out. So those that are watching this or reading this on my blog post, I'll have
go to maximumexitvelocity.com for that one.
There you go.
Because that one's at a different site. But it's
that's good.
Book. There's an ebook and a course.
Yeah, and that's a good one. He's skinned that one more for softball and kind of talking about Oklahoma and work with them. But I mean, the principles all apply to both. It's just more of a softball tailored book. But anyway, Perry, thanks again, man, for the time today, and we'll do part 4. We'll just kind of go on this. We'll have more time on part 4. We'll try and make sure that I'm not butting this up against kid pickup time.
Perfect.
All right, brother. Well, hey, I'll keep up with you. I'll jump off, so we won't have our post, which some people would love to be a fly on the wall for that, I'm sure. But I'll
look into the Discord. My son did it all through. He had like 20 friends on at one time, and they were all playing games. And
I think that would be really fun.
He's a master.
I think a lot of people would learn a lot. I get to hang out with Perry watching a baseball game.
Yeah, that'd be very fun. But also like a lesson, or because I know the way I teach, I would get ragged relentlessly.
I'll be there with you getting ragged.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I don't care at all, because the results I get are ridiculous.
Right? They speak for themselves.
Yeah. But when you got high school kids at 95 and the rest of the world's at 78.
Yeah.
And they started at 68, but now they're at 98.
Yeah.
It's hard to argue when you just get consistent contact after consistent contact, power, strikeouts just virtually go away. But that's not the case with other philosophies.
Right. All right, brother. Well, thanks again, man. Have a good Labor Day weekend, and we'll catch up. We'll do our part 4 next week.
Sounds good.
All right, brother.
Thank you.
See you, Perry.
Bye.
The Hitting Performance Lab wants to know, did you know repeatable hitting power does not start in the hips? Have you heard the expressions, load and explode the hips? Power comes from the hips. Well, we created a free video revealing the results of a scientific study that will show you how we added 48 feet of batted ball distance instantly. And it's not all about the hips. Click here now to get the video while it's still free.